Hey everybody, it's Maureen. Just here seeing if anybody was gonna pop on and watch me embroider or ask me some questions. I had posted some things on my Instagram and my Facebook just to see if anybody was like, hey, it's Friday night. I've got nothing going on. I should go hang out with Maureen on her embroidery channel because that's what we do. So, anyway, how's your quarantine going? Can't talk. Anyway, it's going to be kind of difficult to see, but here we go. I can kind of show you here a little bit. Just turn it. Working on all the outlines, basically, at this point. Roughing in things and then going to go back and do all the detail work. So, if you have some questions, put them over in the chat box and I'll answer them as I see them. So, just hoping this actually looks kind of decent. It kind of looks a little fuzzy, but that's because the lighting. Welcome to crappy lighting. Hoping in the future that when I make some other videos here that I get a different camera so we don't deal with all the fuzziness. I'm hoping this doesn't look fuzzy when we see the recording eventually, but I have a feeling it will because light is a problem. I mean, I have my overhead light on, but that only sheds so much, and if I only have the overhead light on and nothing over my work, I'm not going to see a thing. So. The kind of embroidery I'm doing is called black work embroidery. It's basically black stitching on a white background. There are other kinds of embroidery based on the colors that you're using. There's red work, which is red normally on a white linen or white cotton. Then there's also white work, which is white on white embroidery, which is very challenging because you got to have really good lighting when you're working with the same color on the same color. Trying not to talk too loud. I don't want to be shouting at you. That's not fun. And I think that the microphone's good enough that you guys can hear me. I hope. I'll pause for just a quick moment here. The kind of thread that I'm using is a black silk. I don't know how well you can see that. This is a thicker kind. So I have this doubled over and I'm doing all the outside edges of the bigger vines. This. And I use the same in a single strand to go around the outside edges of the leaves. I'll just try to turn this towards you. So let's see if I can do it this way. Yeah, it is really dark, isn't it? But all right. So you have the leaves themselves, these guys right here. So I'm going around with each of these leaves with a single piece of the silk, just doing the outside edge. The double where it's two strands going in and out, like what I'm doing right here, which is kind of hard to see. This one's finished right here where it's a little thicker. That's double stranded silk as well. And then on the inside of the leaves where there's individual detailed patterns on each style of leaf, there are two, three. There's 4 different styles of leaves, and 2 of them are repeated in the loop. And I use this kind of, there you go, you can kind of see it. This is a thin Gutermann's silk. They normally come on these kind of spools. The silk is on blue spools. The polyester cotton combinations are on like brown or tan spools. So I use just the silk. And what I use this for is the detail pieces and doing really, really thin, fine embroidery work. And I have these in a couple different colors because not only can you use them for embroidery, you can also use them for hand sewing with silk fabrics that maybe you're going to use for clothing. So I see I have one person watching at least. You can put a question in the comments. I will answer said question. Keep it clean, please. Thanks. And what was I saying? I have lost my train of thought. I am very good at that. But for the most part, with this piece, I've been working on it for about a year on and off. And it's a piece that a lot of my projects, I don't necessarily know what I'm going to do with them eventually. This one is going to be a clothing item of some form. More like than likely, I'm thinking about making it into a partlet or something, maybe a set of pockets. I have a Blackwork somewhat similar set of pockets, so we'll see if it works its way into that kind of situation. I'm going to be bringing back the light here so I can see what I'm doing. It's just going to glow off camera here. Bear with me here. So apparently I can't spell the word quarantine to save my life. And spell check on YouTube doesn't want to tell me how to spell it. Isn't that just lovely? Ah, I keep trying to add an E instead of an A. That's fine. There we go. Maybe keep it a little bit more general. You can tell me how your quarantine is going, what you're up to. I'll tell you what I've been up to, which you can kind of probably figure out what I've been up to most of the time. So, shout out if you got anything. I guess maybe here's a disclaimer. This is not going to be the most exciting video. Just, it's not. One of those love you, care about you. It's embroidery. But while I do this, I can still talk to you and embroider at the same time. You know, it's kind of like chewing gum and talking at the same time, I guess. Chewing gum and walking, I guess, actually. Anyway, one of the things that I'm doing during quarantine to keep myself busy is, besides the embroidery, which has been the main item, is just signed up for Foundations Revealed. They had a open enrollment. I'm still working, work from home. So you're sitting sort of where my work from home computer is. So I work in my bedroom. Yes, bed. I like work from home. Not, I miss my coworkers to a point, but I don't miss the office. Let's put it that way. And I guess you could say I find that with work from home, I can actually kind of tackle a couple different things all at the same time. So being home has been very productive. I mean, I've gotten to do all of like the household linens all in one day. And it's like, okay, I feel super accomplished besides working my full time job. All right, that's adulting. Yay. And besides that, then I get to work on other wonderful projects when I'm done with work. Besides, if I have any other chores I want to catch up on, I try not to do them all at once because if I do all of the householdy things all in one day, it's a bit of an issue because then you have nothing else to do the rest of the week. I'm not really going anywhere, doing anything, which is kind of the whole point of quarantine is to not go anywhere. You can do things, but it has to be at home or it's got to have something that you already have supplies to go do. But if you have any questions, comments, jokes, chat box over there, that thing. Anyway, unless maybe it's down here. It could be down here for you guys. I'm not sure. Excuse me, frog. It's trying to knot up in the back. You know, uh-oh, I'm breaking it. There it is. What are we trying to do here? Okay. Oh, God. I am sorry, guys. Wonder if I can pause this. Hi, Matt. Let's see. I just don't know how this is going to work. Well, it's basically a panel of embroidery that is sort of no smaller than 16 by 20 inches, no bigger than 18 by 24. It's in that relative range. It's a 1 yard piece of fabric I bought off of Spoonflower, which is a website that prints custom fabrics. This was a Elizabethan design they actually had already pre-downloaded on the website. And I decided that it was so pretty and so detailed that I'm like, I am going to embroider this because it deserves and it needs to be embroidered. So I bought the fabric. It's on cottons. It was the cheapest that they had. They didn't have a linen option. They may have changed that since, who knows. And with that, so I bought it on cotton, bought the black silk embroidery threads in a couple different sizes, as I mentioned earlier in the video. And with that, I said, well, I could make it into an apron. That was my original idea, was to make it into an embroidered apron. But I've only found one embroidered apron pre 1600 that exists, and it's really falling apart. It doesn't seem to have as much detail as what this does. So more than likely, I'm gonna do one of 2 things with this. Either I'm gonna keep this piece as it is and use it as like a coverlet and then just line the back of it after it's all embroidered and keep it to kind of cover over other things is one option. The other option is that I would make it into a partlet. What a partlet is basically if you see the images of what the Tudor queens looked like, they had basically these coverings over the front of their dresses that went over their shoulders down to about here and over their back. And this is a little bit bigger than that um, at this point. They didn't really do black work shawls as far as like embroidered shawls. You didn't really see anything like that. That's more 18th century. So this is probably going to be a couple, either cut into a couple different things. Actually, a third option is a coif, basically the little head covering. If you see the little image of me for my responses there, I'm wearing a plain one in those pictures, one that's not decorated. Well, this one would be a decorated one. Excuse me for just a moment. People kind of keep popping in and out. So I guess we'll see here. So I'm gonna stay on here with you guys for a little bit of time, thinking maybe for about another 10 minutes or so, because, well, there's only so much I'm sure watching me embroider is that exciting. Unless anybody else has some fantastic questions either way. Thank you, Matt, for getting things started. That was awesome. I appreciate it. Yes, you are right, Matt. Picking one of those options is just going to be challenging enough. But I'm not even halfway through the project yet, so I've got lots of time to decide. More often than not, even with a lot of my projects in general, I don't, even when they're done or close to done, I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. That mainly happens with my knitting. I don't always go into it with a purpose, a reason. And most of the time, I just knit this one very sort of big square just to practice more than anything else, to be honest, because I haven't gotten the knack with knitting about reading a pattern. I've looked at books and I don't know. I have no clue. I don't mind counting my stitches and keeping track that way of whatever it is that I'm doing. I'm sure knitting a shawl or crocheting a shawl shouldn't be that bad of an idea. It's something I should probably look into, but a lot of what I have is like rectangles more than anything else, which I guess would make really good wraps. You know, it's something that's knitted that you could just wrap around you for warmth, pin it closed if you needed to. So knitting's been a recent thing. That's what I did a lot this winter. And thank you. Yes, the hair is getting particularly long. And the braid, and this one's fairly high. The braid is about the only way to keep the hair sort of in control. The longer it gets, the straighter it's becoming. So the curl gets pulled out with the weight, which also helps me with all the historical reenacting I like to do. Keeping my hair long is helpful because I can do a couple different things with it. They did a lot of braiding and tucking hair up underneath hats most of the time. I could, that's true. I would have to get more yarn. I don't keep a large stash on on hand anyway. Because I kind of use my yarn for a couple different things. It helps keep your head warm in the winter. I mean, there is that. I mean, let's see. I cut my hair 4 years ago, and they only cut off about 2 or 3 inches because it's pretty healthy. The hairdresser decided that she didn't want to hack off a whole bunch of it. But prior to that, I hadn't had my hair cut in like 10 years, which was really shocking. I think she thought that there was going to be a whole bunch of split ends that I was going to need to tackle, or that she was going to need to tackle and like cut off 6 inches of my hair. Because at the time I got it cut, it was down to my waistline, not quite to where your pants are, but like the curve of your lower back, kind of thing. Yeah, you could braid your beard, Matt. I mean, if it's long enough, you could go for the dwarven look from Lord of the Rings if you want to go that route. That's You could try a couple different things. I bet you, considering we're on YouTube, there's probably a video out there about doing it. My dad recently, he has grown out a mustache. He's always had one, but he grew out the ends, and now he's turning up the ends and curling the ends of his mustache. At my father's high school reunion, he had won the competition for best mustache. So I thought that was pretty nifty. I said, Dad, that's an award-winning mustache you have there. So maybe if you do the whole beard braiding thing, there might be a competition out there for something like that. Who knows? So for those folks that have joined, and hi everybody, I'm working on blackwork embroidery. It's kind of the theme to my channel, if you will. I do spinning for wool and linen, and then I take what I spin and I weave it into fabric. And most of the time, I take that woven fabric and make it into clothes. At least that's my goal with everything. And embroidery is one of the other things that I do, besides making historical dolls, is something else you'll find on my channel as well. Um, I try to make them non-creepy because there's already a plethora of creepy dolls out there. So, let's keep it nice. To answer your question, Kate, I do play around with my hair a little bit. The braid is sort of my everyday. I, you know, comb it out. I don't really brush my hair, and I don't wash it often. My hair is naturally curly and it's very dry. And washing your hair every day is actually not very good for it. So, what I do is I'll wash mine about every week to 2 weeks when the scalp starts to feel a little funny. So, scrub the scalp because it's always good to make sure that um, the new growth that comes in is nice and clean. And from there, more or less, I'll just detangle. There's a lot of detangling. And after that, I'll dry. I don't blow dry it unless I'm in a hurry, and it's very, very rare. I normally let it air dry if I can, which prevents breakage. And then I'll put a little bit of a lot of coconut oil mostly. Do coconut oil in the hair, and then braid, it's quite the braid. I mean, it's fairly long. Um, so how is everybody dealing with nothing being open and quarantine? How are we doing? Because, well, this is what I'm doing to cope. Let's put it that way. have a whole bunch. Oh, I'm glad to hear that, Kate. I'm hoping everybody's managing really well. What I'm hoping to do, and today our live session here is to just post more videos. I am so very thankful that I have 41 people surprisingly following my channel. I'm shocked, actually. I'm like, what? There's people following my channel? You guys actually want to listen to me? Wow. Okay. Oh, thanks for subscribing, Kate. I really appreciate that. That was very kind. Well, Matt, I mean, the laying off situation is happening quite a bit. My boyfriend owns a comic book shop where I live, and he has been shut down since they shut down the state, using the opportunity to work on inventory and things like that at the shop. But I mean, the the business really profits from people coming in and buying stuff or walking by, or new people in town saying, "Hey, there's a comic book shop here," which is always fun. And I help out with that besides working my job. I've been work from home since mid-March now, answering the phones. Um, I won't go into that too much, but it's a job where I talk to people on the phone every day, and right now it's just tough. Um, People are struggling, and it's hard to kind of hear that in people's voices. And all you can do is do your best and help as much as you can. And that's actually some of the reason why I want to do more videos here on YouTube, is to kind of keep everybody, well, I'm not necessarily busy, but at least somewhat entertained with things that I like, that I hope you're interested in. Let's put it that way. And black work embroidery. I also do. I have a blog. It's called Tudorosities. That blog turns 10 years old this month. And basically, all my past projects that I've done are on my blog. I've got pictures, and I go into detail about the research that goes with it. I particularly like Tudor and Elizabethan history and the clothing, what people wore then and why, as well as then taking the historical patterns, looking at a painting or going into Janet Arnold's patterns of fashion, taking those wonderful patterns and then making the clothes and then wearing it. I mean, it is really just a historical archaeology. And it's something that I'm hoping I get to share with you all here on my channel a bit more. Well, what my goal is, and I'm going to be making, I do mainly women's clothing, but I do have access to men's clothing too. But what I mainly have, like right now, and this is something that you will find on my Instagram from maybe about 2 months ago. Before everything went crazy, in about January, I bought myself some wool fabric. I've got myself a really pretty red scarlet, more, not quite an electric blue, but maybe more like a royal blue, not navy, royal blue. And then a very nice berry colored purple. And what I'm going to be doing, that's going to be coming up here on the channel, is I'll be cutting those out into women's dresses. These would be something that would be more middle class. Um, and it'll be more or less just the bodice and the skirt. And they're going to be attached together. They call it a kirtle. And my goal with that is I'm going to make the kirtles as the underdress. And then they have normally a gown that goes over that called a fitted Tudor. What do they call that? Fitted Tudor gown. If you're kind of curious about the patterns that I use the book the Tudor Tailor. They are also coming out with a follow-up book to that called The Typical Tudor, which is going to deal with more middle-class clothing. Hopefully, it was supposed to come out in May, depending on the situation here with the virus. They don't know if it's going to be delayed. I'm hoping not. Fingers crossed. Because I need more patterns to work on and I need to make more videos so I can put them on the channel for you. And you know what, Matt? You're right. Clothing is really fascinating because the way they wore their clothing back in, let's say, 1600, and even earlier than that, they wore clothing differently then than what we wear now. Now, some of that is also the fact that we have central heat and central air in some of our places now. We don't have to wear as many layers and we don't have to wear so many clothes that insulate us. Because wool and linen and silk, the way those fibers are structured, they insulate and they keep you warm. And with all of that, we don't have to now wear as many layers as what they had to do then to just stay warm. And we also have more clothes now than what they did then. I mean, even when I joined the SCA, which is called the Society for Creative Anachronism, if you have any questions about that, just let me know. I'll put them in the comment box. I'll answer as we go. The SCA recreates medieval Europe from the fall of Rome all the way to 1600. I'm kind of on the latter end. My persona is called Marin O'Calla. She's an Irish woman living in England in around 1530. She wouldn't have been treated very well because Irish were kind of looked at a bit lower than your standard English person. But she made do. And she's more or less like a middle-class merchant kind of woman who knows a bit about wool, and because of her knowledge of keeping sheep in Ireland, she was able to make it into a business and find ways of making it work moving to England. The time frame of her moving in the 1520s or so correlates with Henry VIII invading England at that time. There would have been people moving from place to place at that point. So I'm hoping that you're able to get unemployment, Matt, because it's kind of tough when you can't. That's for sure. And to kind of follow up with your statement about, no desire to make it, I understand that everybody's motivations are a bit different. I like to be able to just sort of make it, wear it, and it makes you kind of feel different when you're wearing it. And even actors and actresses have talked about the costume, if it's cut right and it fits them properly, that the costume, or the clothing in this case, does a majority of the work to make you feel like you're in persona, that you are your character, and that you'll carry yourself differently as well. Oh, the Barony of Black Diamond. Well, I'm up here in the Kingdom of Ethelmark, which I think I already talked to you about several years ago. And I would be in the Shire of Abin-Shegloss, which is Gaelic for near the river's edge. Excuse me, my nose is being a little bit funny today. Well, and in regards to your age, Matt, time flies when you're having fun. We know how that goes. I do remember you. I met you down in Virginia when Justin and I went to go visit. So it was really nice of you to actually pop on. I appreciate it. I didn't forget you guys. Why would I do that? Oh, I'm just trying to think if there's anything. Well, I can't really say there's very much interesting going on. We're all kind of stuck inside, I guess is the best part of it. Um, yeah, it was 10 years ago. Do you get to participate in the SCA at all, Matt, or has work been keeping you from it? One of the things that I'm doing, trying to kind of hone my skills a little bit, I joined a group called Foundations Revealed. It's basically a group that does online classes. And because I want to make those Tudor fitted gowns that are going to go over top the dresses, they kind of act like a wool jacket or a wool coat. You have to make a collar that lays a certain way. And there's some tailoring techniques I don't know how to do. My my mistress, my Laurel, doesn't know how to do some of that, or at least she doesn't focus on the clothing time frame that I do. So I don't want to be pressing some challenges there. Not to say that we couldn't do it, it would take us a lot longer to find the answers. So with that, um, with all of that situation, what I'm hoping to do is do a little bit of self teaching, and Foundations Revealed has experts. One fella who works with the school historical dress, who would be your history expert, and they also have a professional tailor who works with them, as well as other folks who have been sewing for a longer time than I have. I've been in the SCA for 16 years now, which is a while. And I've been sewing pretty much the entire time, but I do feel like there is information I am missing in my wheelhouse. And so I always encourage anyone, not only if you get the time to be able to read on your topic about clothing construction or embroidery, fiber arts, you get the opportunity to read about it, but it's difficult to take what you read and then put it into practice. I'm hoping that foundations will give me the support and also to be able to ask questions, because when you have the book in your hand, if you're not understanding what you're reading, you don't always get to ask questions to the author. I know a few people that I can do that with, but it doesn't go that way with everybody. So I want to be able to take my sewing to the next level and try to get my Laurel as my goal, to be honest, because we should all strive for excellence after all. Well, I'm sorry about the situation with Jamie. I understand that that happens where folks split up and then one person sort of stays in the SCA and the other person doesn't. Um, the only other suggestion that I could make is if there is any other groups that isn't as difficult to get to that you can play with. Sometimes if you play in separate circles, separate groups of people, you won't run into each other near as much. That works out for some people, but it depends on the groups that are around you and the people that are in them. Um, what can we say? Humans are complicated creatures. Well, I think it sounds pretty awesome. I think it's important to, when you can, to invest in being able to do more and learn more. And I'm hoping the whole Foundations Revealed situation, and I did post a recent blog entry on this as well. My idea is just to kind of keep striving. And if you're familiar with the whole rank system in the SCA, they kind of have a couple different things. You have your award of arms, which is your basic first award that you get at kingdom level, which makes you a lord or lady. And I'm more explaining this for those folks who don't know. And then you have your next level, which is your sort of the very beginning area of separating out to if you're into fighting, fencing, arts, or service. You normally get a minor arts award. Like in the Kingdom of Ethelmark, the minor arts awards are the keystone for service and the sycamore for arts. You get an ulce for fighting. I'm thinking that it's the white scarf possibly for fencing, but I'm not 100% sure. The fencing track has its own levels. I have my sycamore, and then I just recently, so been I think last year, the year before, had gotten my fleur, which is a grant level award. Grant levels take one from the status of lady to honorable lady, or when people refer to you, they call you your ladyship. So that puts me sort of one rank underneath Laurel. Laurel would be the mastery of the art or science specialty that you're doing. And my goal is to be the best at what I do, which is historical dolls. And I want to see if this will work. Let's show you guys. They sit there and they watch. I have them on the bookshelves up above here. And I've been working on dolls now pretty much since I started in the SCA, which is interesting. What I've discovered with them is mainly that they were used by tailors to kind of show their craft. And I noticed that a lot of fashion schools seem to do patterning of clothing on half scale dress dummies. So I'm trying to find out. This is a little bit of key of research that you guys might find interesting. I'm hoping so anyway. I want to find out, when it comes to tailoring and eventual, when they created fashion schools, have they always been doing half size models to practice the techniques first? Oh, thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. I try to do my best. This past, they in my kingdom here in the SCA at Ethelmark, they do arts and sciences competition. I had entered my one doll, the red one. If you see my intro on my channel, I show my red doll that I had made, my Arabella Stewart doll. She won third place in the arts and sciences competition for the kingdom, which you could have poked me over with a feather. I was just surprised that she did so well, but I worked really hard. I mean, she's as accurate as it pretty much comes. My next goal, as far as doll making goes, is I'm going to be buying what they call lime wood, which is linden wood. Sometimes you hear it called basswood. It's a soft hardwood on the softer end. It's really good for carving. My goal is to basically carve a doll out of wood with joints for shoulders and elbows, and then dress it. But I'm deciding if I want to do a quarter scale doll, which would be about 18 inches tall, or if I want to do a half scale doll, which would be 2.5 to 3 feet tall, where I would make the doll completely from scratch. I have the woodworking experience. My father is a woodshop teacher, so I can kind of figure out the rest from there. Carve the dolls, sand them, paint them, and then I just have to decide if I do want to do just one or if I want to do two, like a man and a woman. It's all going to depend on the materials I can get. But that's going to be, I'm thinking, and I've been mulling this over, but it's one of those situations where I think it's going to be my piece de résistance. Um, this this is probably going to be what I would consider my master level work. It's going to have to be as good as I can make it. And with that group of Foundations Revealed that I was telling you about, they have the fellow who does the historical research. He has done half scale and has patterned for half scale. So I'm going to be asking him a whole bunch of questions if I do decide to start pursuing doing a half size doll model. Well, really kind of it's moving from a doll to almost a mannequin. And I do have the research for that mannequin situation nailed down. I found a couple great books online that I can reference for French mannequins that were used for fashion purposes, basically from the 1500s all the way through the 1700s. So, I mean, I have that nailed down. That book lays it out. I'm still going to have to go back through the resources on it and cite everything, but that's the whole academic challenge, is that when you're playing the SCA and when you move along, you have a lot of extra work that sometimes comes along with playing. But playing is fun, and it doesn't always seem like work. If YouTube is not your jam, you certainly can follow my blog. It's called Tudorosities. If you happen to Google it, you should be able to find it. Now, Tudorosities is a made-up word. It basically is a combination of the word Tudor for the Henry VIII and the Tudor time frame for him and his daughter Elizabeth, and then osities for curiosities. So Tudorosities, Tudorosities. If you look that up in Google, you'll come across my little corner of the internet, and you can sign up also to get updates on my blog. When a new entry comes in, it'll email you. So, and that blog is going to be turning 10 years old on the 18th. Yay. I think what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to do another live stream on the 18th. I'm not even sure what day of the week that is at this point. Let us consult the great and wonderful calendar. 18th is a Saturday this year. Okay. Well, that's very doable. So it won't be this Saturday, but it'll be next Saturday. So I guess what we'll have to do is, besides questions and answers, maybe we'll have to come up with a theme or something for Tudorosity's birthday. Something survived at least 10 years. Yay! Normally I have cats behind me. Yeah, I think party hats are totally in. I think we're going to at least do that. Maybe a possible noisemaker. I'll look into that for next week. I'll have to see if I can scrounge something up locally, because I don't think I'll have time to order anything and get it mailed here. I'll put that on the weekly semi-weekly shopping list, because we don't go out as often as we normally do. Or at least you're not supposed to. Yeah, party hats, noisemakers, some more. I don't know. Maybe I should do spinning on that video. Show you guys what that looks like. I think the party supply stores are closed too, but sometimes the grocery stores have a little party section. So that's what I'll check out. Depends on the kind of grocery store you have. Walmart probably has it because our Walmarts around here are still selling stuff that aren't just the essentials. They haven't been sort of cranked down on yet. So people are in there like buying clothes and this, that, and the other, just not the essentials. And you're not really supposed to be hanging around, but I think people are so bored that just getting out of the house to go do the shopping, that's what people are doing for entertainment. So, but I haven't been to Walmart at least 2 weeks, probably 3 at this point. I'm trying to avoid it like the plague because we kind of are in a plague. I started out with wool spinning, and I have a video of using my spinning wheel, my flax wheel. I was using wool on it because it's a little easier to do that. I think everybody's probably going shopping more than we should because we're completely bored out of our gourds. I have flax spinning I need to do for my upcoming project. So, project alert. I'm going to be weaving my own linen fabric and creating probably a fitted jacket out of it is my goal. And that'll be embroidered with red wool thread because there is a jacket that is in the Victoria and Albert Museum over in London that is linen base fabric and then red wool embroidery of animals and plants all over it. So that's a goal. I've been wanting to do that one for years. Actually, I have a story for you on that, Matt, and everybody. Um, when I moved where I'm living now, there I'm living in town. I have a yard and I have flower beds and things like that, so I do have to keep a bit of grass. But the challenge with that is there is a ordinance where I live that says that you can't grow crops in your flower beds or around your house. So if I dug up a piece of my yard and grew flax in it, I could get a $300 fine or 6 months in jail. Um, because my goal was actually to grow some flax in my yard and harvest it, dry it, and um, get the fibers out of it and use that. I know, I'm not happy about the little ordinance that they have, and I think the reason they give that fine and the jail time, I think it's one or the other. I don't think you get both unless they're really pissed at you. But what it would come down to is because the flax, like flax nowadays, is grown for the seeds and the oil, and so it doesn't grow very tall. When they've done the research on medieval flax, when they've pulled apart the fibers and looked at the flax bits, those fibers are really super long, which means that the plant needed to be very tall. You're talking 5 feet, 6 feet tall stands of flax. And genetically, the way flax is now, it's shorter so that the seeds produce more oil to make flax oil, flaxseed oil, instead of having grown a really tall plant. So that kind of shows how, when they talk about genetically modified plants, that's kind of how flax is to a point because they grow it for the seeds and the oil and they don't necessarily grow it for the fiber lengths. I read a paper about someone who's doing the research on this and was thinking about trying to find those genetic versions of flax that grow really tall, 5 or 6 feet tall, for fiber purposes. And whether or not they'll be able to do it, that would be fascinating. as someone who has a degree in horticulture, that's kind of exciting stuff, actually. That's what this person is researching about the flax is if there's old strains still around that they could find that grow really tall, that they could recreate the fibers that happened in medieval times for flax. The reason I'm even bringing it up is because the way flax is, when historians are looking at clothing that still survived, extant pieces, they can check to see whether or not that what the fibers and the material were back then as to compared to what we have now. And back in medieval times, they could make flax linen so thin it would be almost thinner than this silk handkerchief I'm holding right here, where you can see the light through the handkerchief. And this is pretty thin to an extent, it's somewhat sheer. And you can get some pretty thin linen now, but it's not to the standard that they used to create back in medieval times, where they could create it almost like a gossamer kind of thin linen. So I think they want to try to recreate it if they can, or at least this researcher wants to, and I hope she can. I mean, I think that's pretty exciting stuff, to be honest. Very academic, kind of very, very high level botany there, but we'll see what happens. I kind of keep an eye on this person's research a little bit and just to see what they know, because it's something that if I was, well, I plan on making this embroidered jacket. It's something that I can quote this researcher in my paperwork and say, this is what it was supposed to be. This is what it is now. And this is why it is the way that it is now. Do I have to go in that much detail with my research? No. But am I going to? Yes. Because I want to answer as many possible questions in my research. And that's probably going to be quite a book of a paper. We're talking, 20, 30 page paper, more than likely, on this project by itself, because I have to go through step by step. Oh, yes. And that's actually the other reason for the blog, is it helps me keep track of how long a project takes. It also allows me to post my documentation so people can kind of see what I'm up to. So I try to spread the love of documentation and research. And I didn't think anybody was going to be on here. I figured I would be on here for like 30 minutes. It's almost an hour. Thank you so much for joining me and asking such great questions. I'm hoping that when everybody else that wasn't able to be here is able to kind of see things through, that they were able to get some very interesting points, find out sort of a bit more about my channel here on YouTube, that it's a nice little corner of knowledge. But since we're going to be approaching an hour, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you, Matt, and thank you so much, Kate, for joining me tonight. And I'm hoping to do this here on April the 18th. Not this coming Saturday, but the following Saturday. And I'll see you guys then. Bye.